Hey guys, I'm alive. I'm recording this video right now. I'm really touched by how much feedback I've received. People are calling, asking how I'm doing, what happened, and what's going on in general. So, first of all, let me say that I'm alive. The flash mob will take place. As you can see, I've already made a poster. My finger, let me show you, is healing because I'm a dog person and the dogs lick my finger, so now it's healing. It bleeds a little when I'm doing things, but it's healing. So I want to answer all your questions right away, tell the story of how it happened, and share what I think about it. I usually take the dogs out for a walk when they wake up. They wake up at different times. Sometimes they wake up at 6 in the morning, and other times, when the weather's rainy, they wake up at 8:30 or 9. I never know when I'll be going out with the dogs. They're the ones in charge of me. And that morning, the day before yesterday, I went out with the dogs at around 8 a.m. At that time, my husband was getting ready to go to rehearsal. Then I went out with them. Two dogs. I have two dogs. You've probably seen them. One is a chocolate lab who weighs 80 pounds. And the coffee-colored one? A coffee-colored American pit bull who weighs 75 pounds. Evan now. I walk with them. And since we've had problems with them knocking me over, breaking my legs and arms, that's why I walk with them. And usually when they go chasing after squirrels or rabbits, that's what they do. So I walk with them in the field so I don't fall. I let them off the leash there. Not far from me, there's a big field where they plant either soybeans or corn. And we go there. And this time we went there and I kept them on their leashes because there was a car with a man who was marking the posts. They're going to replace the electric poles there. Honestly, I can't remember right now whether this happened on the way there or on the way back. But we actually took a long walk with the dogs earlier, and my younger dog, the American Pit Bull, well, please pardon me for saying this, but he just didn't poop at all. And as we were heading back, I thought, he'll just do it at home. And I stopped by that guy and asked if they were going to replace the poles here. He said yes. Well, that's it. Basically, that's how it all went. We got in the car and drove off. We drove maybe half a mile, and my dog started getting restless, and I realized he wanted to go back. I don't know, maybe 2 or 3 minutes passed, and we went back there, but by then there was no one around. It was completely empty. An empty field no matter where you look. Mile this way, mile that way. There's no one around. And we walked our usual route again and reached a certain spot. And finally, my Kuvia did his business, left a huge pile. And I happily headed home. I slowly turned around and saw a dark car that was parked right there on the busy crossroad. Like a mini truck or something like that. With an open bed, just a regular car, dirty green in color. And walking toward us was a man in a black hoodie with white drawstrings. That's all I remember. He was pretty skinny and wearing black pants. Since I have two serious dogs, I really don't worry much. Plus, I go to this place 3 times a day. And since we live not far from the prison and not far from the shelter, there's a lot of police in our area. So I really don't worry about it at all. And people from the shelter would come there very often since they get kicked out of the shelter at 6 in the morning. We talked to them. I even became friends with some of them. We would chat and talk about life. Especially when I was depressed, I needed to understand how people living in the shelter don't get depressed, but I do. So he's walking toward us, and I thought, by the way, it's interesting that these people from the shelter actually come in cars. Some of them come during the day and eat sandwiches. Basically, I know everyone there and everyone knows me. And this person is walking toward us or walking with the dogs. What was strange to me is that usually when my dogs see someone unfamiliar walking by or see a car driving by, they either run toward the car or start barking. But this time they were quiet, just calmly walking next to me. This person came up level with me, with us. At first, he was walking on one side of the road, then he came up alongside us. Suddenly, he reached behind his back and pulled out a knife. I mean, he yanked out a knife and swung it at me, and I instinctively grabbed it with my hand. Luckily, the knife wasn't double-edged, and I only grabbed it with my thumb, and then I let go. The dog didn't bark or attack him. Apparently, he got scared and ran away. He ran to his car and drove off. There's a huge amount of plantain growing in that field. Out of old Russian habit, I stopped the bleeding because the blood was gushing like crazy. I grabbed a huge bunch of plantain, pressed it to the wound, and held it tight. So, with the fingers I had left in my left hand, the dogs and I ran after me. We jumped into the car and drove home. The first thing I did, of course, was go to stop the bleeding, and that's when I recorded a message for you. This is that first video where you can even see blood gushing from my finger. First, I poured hydrogen peroxide on it. Then I covered it with some kind of glue, somehow managed to stop the bleeding, and then did the next thing. I'm always very responsible. I fed the dogs. Then I called my husband. He didn't answer. Apparently, he was already at rehearsal, or didn't hear, or maybe his phone was off. And that's when I got scared. It was only at that moment that I actually got scared. And that's when I dialed 911, and that's when the scariest part began. The woman on the phone kept asking me for my address, then spent a long time asking me to say my first and last name and to spell my last name. You know, it takes 2 minutes just to spell out a last name. Aranovskaya. Every single letter, because when I say it, they keep mixing things up. They confuse the V, then they mix up the N or something else, so I have to spell it out. A as in apple, R as in Robert, A as in apple, N as in New York, O, V as in Victor. I have to name every letter individually. I'm spelling it out and thinking, what the heck? Why didn't you just call the police? Turns out I was wrong. She was actually keeping me on the line and trying to calm me down. And during that time, before I even finished saying my name, 3 minutes later, there was a knock at my door. That's when the dog started barking. I opened the door and I see 5 or 6 police cars. There were cars, a crowd, people standing around, and there was already an emergency vehicle, a fire truck, with people getting out of it. They started questioning me, asking me to show my ID, asking if I needed to be taken somewhere to get stitches, if I needed to get all this stitched up. I said I wasn't going anywhere to get stitches, even though, as you probably saw, it was pretty crazy. So they were questioning me. Then they asked if they could take a look at my car. She doesn't come into her house. My cousin starts assaulting the police officer. He's going through a phase right now. Yeah, he jumps on anyone, especially men. I suspect he has some issues. And after that, the police officers ask me if I agree to go with them out to the field. Yeah, with trembling hands, I have to show on the map where it happened, on the phone. Basically, this all takes a crazy amount of time. They're asking questions, the dogs are nervous, and there are so many police officers. I have this poster ordered. I need to go pick it up. They've already called me. So we drive out to this field, we get there, and there are already a ton of cars being repaired. These people were standing there. People were standing there, and the police started questioning them. I said, they weren't there. At that time, the field was empty. Why are you questioning them? They didn't see anything, they say. But they have those recording cameras. I said again, there was no one there except for that car. No one at all. Then the police started questioning me. They asked how far away it happened, how many meters, where, what we were doing. This whole thing dragged on, and I was starting to get tired. And each of them, 2 or 3 people, came up to me and asked the same questions over and over. I started to suspect what they were thinking, and even back then, when the police officer came into my home, he started looking around my kitchen and said, "Oh, you have a sharp knife here." There was a knife lying there, and that's when I started to feel something was off. I suspected that the police were probably trying to figure out if I was in my right mind. In other words, they weren't in a hurry to get to the crime scene. First, they wanted to make sure I was mentally healthy. Yeah, and that's for those people who write me all sorts of posts. Crazy, city crazy, and so on. There you go. We spent about 20 minutes there with all these questions. There were a lot of them. Some of the police officers went off to investigate the whole road. At first, I told them I forgot that I had left and then come back. Then it came back to me because I was in such a weird state. And at that moment, when I said it, I remembered that I had come back and left again. At that time, another police officer was standing there. I said, and my dog, made a big mess over there, and the second one, too. The police officer confirmed that, yes, there was fresh poop there. Can you imagine? They were walking along the road inspecting that dog poop. It's unbelievable what they were doing. After a while, after they had worn me out, they inspected my car again. Suddenly, they tell me, "You see, here's the thing. Our department is responsible for this side of the road, but what happened to you is under the jurisdiction of the feds or some other agency. So now we have to wait for the others. They'll be here soon. And unfortunately, they're going to ask you the same questions all over again." Then 2 even more suspicious looking cops show up and they start asking me the same questions. They're running around, saying things, and by this point, I'm completely exhausted, my mind is a mess, and my dogs are all anxious. At home, everything is just as it was. Nothing's changed. I can't even get anything done, can't do anything at all. During this time, when I'm out walking the dogs, I always make those posts. The morning ones I call the morning brief. And as for Modest Akakovich, Pupkin Tarakanov, that's mine. That's what I call him. And he's always in my pocket. I walk the dogs with both hands and he's in my pocket. I talk to him. He records my thoughts. We discuss things. I scold him for not recording something right. In short, we communicate. So these police officers, the new police officers, yes, one of them suspiciously says, "But how did you look? I checked your car. There are no traces of blood." I say, "Well, I pressed my finger and I had a big burdock leaf. I threw that leaf away in my bathroom when I got home." He says, "But how did you drive the car?" I say, "Do you want me to show you how I drove the car or what?" Meanwhile, while this new guy was walking around, I say to the police officer who had already spent a lot of time with me, "How are you even going to find him? You'll find an empty field. You don't have any cameras here." He says, "No, we have cameras at every major intersection." I mean, a major intersection. It's miles from here to there. How would that even work? And what if he drove along the main road? I didn't see when he pulled up because I was walking toward the forest. My back was to the road. He was picking mushrooms. Well, all our cameras record everything. 4 years ago, my house was trashed by a woman who used to sit here with my dogs. You did nothing, even though you had her information, and the police detained her and took her documents, and you still did nothing to detain her and to make her return the gold items she stole. And the horror she created at home and the state she left it in. You did nothing. We went to court. The judge ruled in our favor. We won the case. She just brazenly wrote emails to me and Nastya, mocking me. And then she just up and left the state. As soon as you leave the state, he tells me, "Yes, but that was a civil court, and if it had been a criminal case." I said, "Well, someone told me it should have been a criminal case. All I was told was that I needed to hire a lawyer." and pay out of my own pocket again, and she would have just left the state anyway and ended up not guilty. A lot of people have told me this already. Now, that's it. So I have absolutely no hope that they'll find him. But I did share my theory with the police officer about why this could have happened. I can't even imagine that suddenly at 8 in the morning, some person who doesn't know me at all and sees someone with two serious dogs would, for no reason, come exactly to the place where I walk, especially since I happen to come back there by chance, and would just go and try to kill me. I connect this to my work, which became especially active after the murder of Semyon Skripetsky. Because why did this story affect me so much? 4 years ago, I don't remember exactly if it was June 6th or 8th, but you can check this on my YouTube channel. Just type my name on YouTube and you'll see it. By the way, subscribe. I'm just 20 subscribers short of 1,000, so... In 2022, my colleagues, my husband, and I traveled to 8 countries across Europe protesting against the war. A lot of different things happened there. I even fought with people who supported Putin, and we spoke out. But what struck me the most back then, 4 years ago, was that right in the same spot where Semyon Skripetsky held his coming out or flash mob, call it what you will, I was standing in that very spot. Isn't that a coming out? No? No, sorry. But for some reason, it seemed to me that when a person opens up like that and says something, it should be called that. Coming out. But it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. In any case, it was a performance. Let's call it that. A performance. Yes, I was standing right there, directly across from it. Across from the Russian embassy in Berlin with the Ukrainian flag and my violin. They were recording me and I was saying my words, which you can hear. I won't repeat them now. And I made the connection, and 3 days later, Semyon Skripetsky, who was standing in the same spot as I was killed. Honestly, I associated this with the work of intelligence agencies, which have multiplied like crazy in America since the war began, because a huge number of intelligence agents crossed the border together with refugees from Russia. I know this for sure. I know specific people in Kansas City who are connected to the consulate in Houston, who were sent here to Kansas City to keep an eye on things, to watch over righteousness. We have this Russian society here, some kind of Russian organization, which, if you look at their posts, is very supportive of Putin and speaks out in his favor. There are a ton of people living in America who still support Putin. That's how it is. So, naturally, all my friends started warning me, saying, Alla, stop, be careful, and all that. I can say that I won't be careful, Jimful. Yes, the flash mob that we're planning to do. The flash mob will take place on the 30th, and it starts in New Zealand at 6 p.m. on the 30th. It starts with my friend, who is getting ready for it, and even bought a Ukrainian flag especially for this. This flash mob, I repeat again, is written about and pinned on my account. It has 2 goals. That big fundraiser I announced, $50,000, plus other fundraisers on different platforms, but the one on Facebook for $50,000 for Leopold Our Society, that fundraiser, half of that amount, half of the fundraiser goes to help Ukraine. The other half will go to talented children who are suffering because they had to leave their country, or even to talented people around the world who want to take part with me in the renewed Leopold Hour competition, listen carefully, which we plan to relaunch in 2027. Well, that's probably all. Now, I'm going to ask my AI to translate this into English, because I have English-speaking viewers and a lot of friends who are worried about me. The flash mob will take place. I'm not naming the location, but it will be here in Kansas. Again, that's for security reasons, but not for myself. I'm not afraid of you guys. And for those who come with Ukrainian flags who will give their speeches, there will be a live broadcast at 6 p.m. Central Time in America. In Russia, it'll be 2 a.m. at that time, so FSB agents don't sleep. Watch what's happening. All I can say is to warn you that the police have been notified and we will be protected. So if you want to, don't mess with me, guys. Okay?